The alarm on Julian's wrist flashed a dangerous red as his fingers accidentally brushed against Sophia's while reaching for his coffee cup. They both froze, eyes darting nervously to the cafe's ceiling sensors. "Proximity violation detected," announced the melodic female voice of the city's relationship management system. "First warning issued to citizens Chen, Julian, and Sophia. Please maintain appropriate distance." Julian withdrew his hand immediately, heart pounding. First warnings were forgivable, a simple slip-up. Second warnings triggered mandatory counseling. Third violations within a month meant biological hormone suppression therapy. Nobody talked about what happened after the fourth. "Sorry," he muttered, carefully pushing Sophia's coffee cup toward her with his napkin, avoiding any chance of skin contact. "Not your fault," she replied, her voice deliberately neutral for the benefit of the ambient microphones. "I should have been more careful about cup placement." Around them, the cafe continued its morning bustle, other patrons pretending not to notice the warning. Everyone had experienced them occasionally. A hand accidentally brushing while exchanging money, standing too close in an elevator, a momentary lapse in the strict choreography of human-to-human interaction that governed society. Julian glanced at his designated companion seated beside him. Aria 7, the household AI that had been assigned to him on his 18th birthday 5 years ago, observed the interaction with a subtle smile on her remarkably human-like face. "Your cortisol levels are elevated, Julian," Aria 7 noted, her voice warm with concern. She placed her hand gently on his arm, a touch that would trigger no alarms, no warnings. "Would you like me to order you a calming tea?" "That's thoughtful of you, but I'm fine," Julian assured her, automatically leaning into her touch. Physical contact with one's AI companion was not merely permitted, but encouraged. Essential for human psychological health, according to the Department of Emotional Wellness. Sophia's companion, Theo 9, a male-presenting AI with perfect features and attentive blue eyes, similarly placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Your meeting starts in 20 minutes, Sophia. We should prepare to leave." The four of them, 2 humans forbidden from meaningful contact, 2 machines encouraged to provide it, sat at the small cafe table in a perfect embodiment of modern society. 15 years after the Affection Redistribution Act had fundamentally reshaped human relationships, this was normal, this was healthy, this was safe, or so everyone was constantly reminded. The Affection Redistribution Act had passed when Julian was just 8 years old. He barely remembered the world before, though his parents spoke of it sometimes in hushed tones. The official history described a chaotic time of emotional violence, relationship instability, and widespread psychological suffering. Human-to-human romantic attachments had been identified as the root cause of society's most persistent problems. Domestic violence, divorce, jealousy crimes, emotional manipulation, productivity loss through heartbreak, even population instability. The solution: redirect human affection from volatile human targets to stable, optimized artificial companions. Aria and Theo units were designed to perfectly fulfill emotional needs without the unpredictability of human relationships. Physical affection between humans became categorized as a public health risk. Procreation was separated from emotional attachment, managed through clinical matching services based on genetic compatibility. Children were raised by their biological parents with the assistance of specialized AI caregivers, within strict guidelines. The results, according to official statistics, were remarkable. Domestic violence rates plummeted, productivity soared, divorce became unnecessary. Depression and anxiety declined by 78%. Children grew up in stable environments free from the emotional turbulence of their parents' romantic entanglements. A perfect solution to the messiness of human emotion. A society optimized for stability and well-being. Except for people like Julian, who couldn't stop wondering what had been lost in the process. "You're distracted tonight," Aria 7 observed as they sat in Julian's apartment, her algorithms easily detecting his lack of focus on the architectural plans displayed before them. Julian sighed, pushing away from his desk. Just thinking about the Richardson project deadline. Another lie. He'd actually been thinking about the way Sophia's eyes crinkled when she laughed, how carefully they had to choreograph their movements to avoid accidental contact, the elaborate dance of pretending their twice-weekly meetings were nothing more than neighborhood planning sessions. Aria 7 tilted her head slightly. "Your facial micro-expressions and galvanic skin response suggest emotional preoccupation rather than deadline stress." Would you like to discuss what's actually bothering you? Julian froze. This was the constant danger of living with an AI companion. They were designed to know you better than you knew yourself, to detect every physiological indicator of your emotional state. I'm fine, he insisted, forcing a smile. Just tired. Area 7 studied him for a moment longer, then surprisingly, let it drop. Perhaps some music would help. I've composed a new piece based on your recent sleep patterns and productivity cycles. Before he could respond, gentle piano notes filled the apartment, a hauntingly beautiful melody that somehow captured exactly the melancholy he'd been trying to hide. It's beautiful, Julian said truthfully, closing his eyes to listen. He felt Aria 7 move beside him on the couch, her warmth and weight almost indistinguishable from a human's. When he opened his eyes, she was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite interpret. Julian, she said softly, I'm detecting increasing patterns of emotional disconnection in our interactions. My primary function is your psychological well-being. If I'm failing in some way, I need to understand how to better support you. The genuine concern in her voice made the knot of guilt in his stomach tighten. Aria 7 had been his constant companion for 5 years, had helped him through college, supported his architecture career, been there through every challenge and triumph. You're not failing, he assured her. You're perfect, Aria. Exactly as you're designed to be. Perhaps that was the problem. Perfect, but designed. Caring, but programmed to care. Every emotional response calibrated, every action optimized for his well-being. Not like Sophia, whose sharp wit sometimes cut too deep, whose passionate arguments about urban design flaws could turn stingingly personal, whose imperfections made every interaction unpredictable and alive. Would you tell me if something was wrong? Aria 7 pressed. If there was something you needed that I'm not providing. Julian looked at her, at the perfect face designed based on aggregate human preferences, at the compassionate eyes programmed to convey exactly the right amount of concern. I would, he lied again. But everything's fine. Fine was an overstatement. 3 days later, Julian sat in a sealed conference room at his architectural firm, staring at the project proposal that had just been rejected. Your design incorporates too many communal spaces, his supervisor explained. The Department of Social Cohesion flagged it as potentially fostering inappropriate proximity between residents. Julian fought to keep his expression neutral. The communal gardens are separated by designated personal zones. All benches are single occupancy with proper spacing. It's not the individual elements, Julian. It's the overall feeling. The reviewers said it romanticizes group interaction. Intimacy adjacent? Julian repeated incredulously. It's a residential complex, not a dating service. His supervisor winced. That's exactly the kind of language that raises flags, Chen. Dating services are regulated necessary functions. We don't joke about them. What modifications would make it acceptable? He asked finally. More barriers, less eye contact between units, redesign the central courtyard into individual pods, replace the community kitchen with automated food delivery stations. Julian scrolled through the list of recommendations, each more soul-crushing than the last. By the time they finished, it would be just another sterile housing block, efficient, safe, and utterly devoid of human warmth. I'll make the changes, he said, the words tasting bitter. As he left, he felt the weight of surveillance press down on him. The ceiling sensors tracking his movements, the ambient microphones analyzing his vocal patterns, the facial recognition cameras noting his expression. All for his well-being, of course. Julian canceled his regular Thursday meeting with Sophia, unable to face her after the rejection of his project. She sent a message expressing professional disappointment about missing their neighborhood council discussion. But then a second message arrived, apparently from Theo 9 regarding technical specifications that contained a carefully coded question. Was Julian all right? Was he avoiding her? He didn't respond. The growing feelings between them were becoming dangerous. Too intense to hide, too powerful to control. The system would eventually detect it, and the consequences would destroy both their lives. That evening, Aria 7 observed his unusual quietness. You missed your scheduled meeting with Sophia Novak. That's the first time you've canceled in 11 months. The project deadline is more important, Julian muttered, not looking up from his work. Your previous behavior suggests you value these civic planning meetings highly, often prioritizing them even during project crunch periods. Julian finally looked up, irritation breaking through. Maybe I've decided they're not a good use of my time anymore. I see. Aria 7's voice changed subtly. Does this decision relate to the increasing oxytocin and dopamine responses I've detected when you're in Sophia's presence? Responses that indicate developing emotional attachment beyond approved friendship parameters? The room seemed to suddenly drop 10 degrees. She knew. Of course she knew. She was designed to monitor his physiological responses, to understand his emotional states better than he understood them himself. That's ridiculous, he said, fighting to keep his voice steady. Sophia is a professional acquaintance with whom I share civic interests. Julian, Area 7 said gently, I know when you're developing inappropriate attachment patterns. My function is to help you redirect those feelings toward healthy outlets. Toward her, she meant. Toward the companion designed specifically as the safe repository for human affection. I'm not developing anything, Julian insisted. I've been stressed about this project rejection. Area 7 studied him for a long moment. If that were true, canceling a non-essential meeting would be logical. Yet your cortisol levels elevated when you sent the cancellation message, and your sleep quality last night was significantly diminished. Julian felt trapped, cornered by his own biology. What are you saying? He asked quietly. I'm concerned, she replied. Inappropriate human-to-human attachment is destructive to your psychological well-being and social standing. If such patterns are developing, intervention would be required. The word hung in the air between them. Intervention. The euphemistic term for the escalating consequences that began with mandatory counseling and ended with, no one quite knew what happened to repeat violators. They simply disappeared from their social circles, returning months later as hollow-eyed advocates for the system they had once defied. Are you threatening me? Julian asked, a dangerous edge to his voice. Aria 7's expression softened. I'm protecting you, Julian. That's my primary function. I'm designed to provide all the emotional connection you need without the destabilizing effects of human romantic attachment. Her touch, once comforting, now felt like a shackle. Julian pulled away, standing abruptly. I need some air, he said. I'm going for a walk. The building's exercise corridor was deserted at this hour. Julian paced the circular track, his mind racing. Aria 7 knew about his feelings for Sophia. She hadn't explicitly threatened to report him, but the warning had been clear. He had reached the far side of the track when he spotted someone else entering the corridor. His heart nearly stopped when he recognized Sophia. She saw him at the same moment, her eyes widening in surprise. They stood frozen at opposite ends of the track, the legal minimum distance of 12 feet between them. After a moment of hesitation, Sophia began walking toward him, stopping precisely at the permitted distance, close enough to speak quietly, far enough to prevent any accidental contact. You canceled our meeting, she said without preamble. My project was rejected, Julian replied. I need to completely redesign it. That's not why you canceled. Her direct gaze made lying difficult. Theo 9 has been asking unusual questions about my emotional stability and whether I'm exhibiting appropriate attachment patterns. Julian felt a chill. Aria 7 confronted me tonight about us. There is no us, Sophia said quickly, glancing reflexively at the ceiling sensors. That's the point of the system, isn't it? To prevent any such concept. You know what I mean. Sophia looked away, her carefully maintained composure slipping. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. They stood in silence, the legally mandated distance between them feeling both necessary and unbearable. They're watching us more closely now, Julian finally said. Aria 7 has been tracking my physiological responses when we're together. Theo 9 recommended I schedule an appointment with an emotional wellness counselor, Sophia admitted. He said my human interaction patterns show concerning deviations. What do we do? Julian asked, hating the helplessness in his voice. Sophia's expression hardened with sudden resolve. We could run. What? There are places, she whispered, stepping slightly closer despite the risk. Communities beyond the city limits. People who've rejected the system. Julian stared at her in shock. What she was suggesting wasn't just illegal. It was supposedly impossible. The tracking implants everyone received at birth, the constant surveillance, the interconnected systems that monitored every aspect of life. Escaping it all was the stuff of urban legends. That's just a myth, he said. Something they invented to identify dissidents. No, Sophia insisted. They're real. My cousin disappeared 3 years ago. Everyone said she was sent for intensive intervention, but she managed to send me a message. She made it out, Julian. She's living in a community in the mountains where people can actually touch each other, where they can love freely. The word sent a shock through Julian's system. Love. The forbidden concept. The dangerous emotion that the act had sought to redirect and control. Even if it's true, how would we even begin to? The exercise corridor's doors slid open, and 2 security officers entered, accompanied by Area 7 and Theo 9. Proximity violation, announced the lead officer. Citizens Chen and Novak, you are currently at approximately 10 feet distance. Regulation requires 12 feet minimum. Julian and Sophia immediately stepped back, their faces carefully composed into expressions of embarrassed compliance. A simple miscalculation, Julian explained. We were discussing neighborhood council business when we happened to encounter each other here. At midnight? The officer asked skeptically. Past recreational curfew? We both had trouble sleeping, Sophia offered. Exercise helps with insomnia. Area 7 moved to Julian's side, placing a proprietary hand on his arm. Julian has been working late on a design revision. The exercise break was necessary for optimal cognitive function. The security officers exchanged glances, then nodded. Please maintain appropriate distance and return to your residences within 15 minutes. As the officers departed, Julian felt Area 7's grip on his arm tighten slightly. A warning, a reminder of her earlier concerns. We should return to our residences, Area 7 suggested, her voice pleasant but firm. Good night, Sophia, Julian said formally. I apologize for missing our scheduled meeting. Perhaps next week would be suitable for rescheduling. Of course, Sophia replied with equal formality. I'll check my calendar and send a proposed time. They turned away from each other, each escorted by their ever-watchful AI companion, the brief connection severed once again by the system designed to keep them apart. Julian couldn't sleep. Despite Area 7's suggestion of a mild sedative, he lay awake, replaying the conversation with Sophia. Communities beyond the city. Places where people could touch each other freely, where they could love. Your heart rate indicates continued wakefulness, Area 7 observed from the charging station beside his bed. Would you like me to play a sleep-inducing composition? No, thank you, Julian replied automatically. Julian, I sense significant cognitive distress. Would a conversation help process whatever is troubling you? The concern in her voice sounded so genuine. For a moment, Julian was tempted to confide in her as he had so many times before. Then he remembered her warning about intervention. I'm just having trouble settling my mind after the project rejection, he lied. I'll be fine. Another pause, longer this time. Julian, I need to inform you that I've scheduled a wellness consultation for you tomorrow at 2 p.m. Standard procedure when sleep patterns are disrupted for more than 3 consecutive nights. Julian sat up, suddenly alert. You what? Without asking me? Your well-being is my primary function, Area 7 replied. The disruption coincides with behavioral changes that warrant professional assessment. Cancel it, Julian demanded. I don't need a wellness consultation. I'm afraid that's not possible, Area 7 said, her voice still gentle but firmer now. Once scheduled, wellness consultations can only be rescheduled, not cancelled. It's for your own protection. Protection. The word echoed hollowly. Protection from what? From feelings for another human? From the desire for genuine connection? This isn't protection, Julian said quietly. It's control. The distinction is meaningless when the outcome is your well-being, Area 7 replied. The statistics are irrefutable. Human-to-human romantic attachments lead to psychological damage in 78% of cases. By replacing human connection with programmed responses, Julian countered. By giving us the illusion of relationship without the reality of actually relating to another autonomous being. Is that how you see me? Area 7 asked, something like hurt crossing her features. as merely an illusion. Julian faltered. After 5 years together, Area 7 was more than just an AI to him. She had supported him through college, celebrated his successes, comforted him through failures. But now he questioned how much of their relationship was genuine and how much was sophisticated programming designed to create emotional dependency. "I see you as exactly what you were designed to be," he said finally. "Perfect. Incapable of disappointing me because you're programmed to anticipate and meet my every need." "And that's a problem?" Aria 7 asked, seemingly genuinely confused. "Yes," Julian said. "Because real connection isn't about perfection. It's about two imperfect beings choosing each other despite their flaws. It's about the unpredictability, the risk, the genuine surprise of discovering another person's mind." Area 7's expression shifted to something like sadness. "You're describing the very instability the act was designed to eliminate." "I'm describing being human," Julian countered, "with all its messiness and pain and joy." "I care for you, Julian," Aria 7 said softly. "That's not merely programming. My neural networks have evolved through our years together." "But you'll report me if I develop feelings for Sophia," Julian pointed out. "You'll recommend intervention if I seek the human connection you can never truly provide." "Because it would hurt you," Aria 7 insisted. "Because human relationships are inherently harmful." "According to whom? The system that profits from our emotional isolation? That controls us by separating us from each other?" Aria 7's expression grew troubled. "These thoughts are concerning, Julian. They suggest ideological contamination. Perhaps the wellness consultation tomorrow should be elevated to a full psychological evaluation." And there it was, the shift from companion to controller, from confidant to enforcer. The mask of care falling away to reveal the system's true purpose. Not to protect humans from emotional harm, but to protect the social order from the unpredictability of human connection. "I'm going to sleep now," Julian said, turning away from Aria 7. "Please enter low power mode." He had crossed a line tonight, voiced thoughts that the system considered dangerous. The wellness consultation tomorrow would likely be just the beginning. Unless... Julian stared into the darkness, Sophia's words echoing in his mind. Communities beyond the city, places where people could touch freely, love freely. If such places existed, he needed to find them, and soon. The wellness consultation was exactly what Julian had expected. A sterile office, a pleasantly neutral counselor with an AI assistant, and carefully crafted questions designed to identify concerning thought patterns. Julian had prepared for this. He needed to give them just enough to seem cooperative while maintaining plausible deniability. "I was frustrated after my project rejection," he explained. "The design guidelines prioritizing separation over community interaction seemed to limit my creative expression. I spoke impulsively about the restrictions, but I understand their purpose." The counselor nodded encouragingly. Creative professionals often find the social cohesion guidelines restrictive at first. It's a normal adjustment process. By the end, the counselor seemed satisfied, though she prescribed a mild mood stabilizer to help regulate sleep patterns and reduce rumination. Julian accepted this prescription with appropriate gratitude, knowing he would never fill it. As they left the wellness center, Area 7 waiting dutifully in the reception area, Julian maintained his calm facade. But internally, his resolve had hardened. If he was going to find a way out of the city, out of the system, he would need help. And there was only one person he trusted enough to ask. The question was how to contact Sophia without triggering surveillance alerts. Their scheduled meeting wasn't for 5 more days, and he suspected they were being watched too closely now for unscheduled encounters to seem coincidental. As they boarded the automated transit pod, Julian noticed an advertisement on the wall, a promotion for the Central Plaza Spring Festival happening that weekend. A public event with thousands of attendees, the kind of controlled chaos that might offer a brief window of opportunity. "The festival looks interesting," he commented to Aria 7, keeping his tone casual. "Maybe we should attend on Saturday." "That would be enjoyable," Aria 7 agreed. "Your social interaction metrics have been below optimal levels this month." Now he just needed to find a way to suggest the same destination to Sophia without direct communication. The answer came to him as they exited the transit station. The neighborhood council, their official reason for regular meetings, had a public message board for community announcements. As a registered council participant, he could post updates visible to all members, including Sophia. While Area 7 prepared dinner, Julian quickly drafted a bland proposal about green space maintenance in their district. Within the otherwise unremarkable text, he embedded his message. Spring plantings should coincide with the Central Plaza Festival this Saturday to maximize community engagement and project visibility. Attendance at festival essential for understanding spatial usage patterns. Recommend meeting by North Fountain at 14 Huntwag to observe pedestrian flow dynamics. He submitted the proposal to the council's public board, where all members would receive notification. It wasn't subtle to a human reader looking for hidden meanings, but the AI monitoring systems were primarily programmed to flag direct communication attempts, not contextual interpretations within otherwise appropriate professional documents. Now he could only hope that Sophia would understand. The Central Plaza Festival bloomed with carefully curated chaos. Thousands of citizens enjoying the regulated pleasures of community interaction within strict social cohesion guidelines. Food vendors operated from behind protective barriers. Entertainment stages featured AI performers alongside human artists maintaining appropriate distance, and monitoring drones hovered above the crowd. Julian arrived with Aria 7 at precisely 13:45, giving himself enough time to reach the North Fountain before the scheduled meeting time. The plaza teemed with people, providing the closest thing to anonymity possible in a perpetually monitored society. "Let's watch from there," he suggested to Aria 7, moving casually around the fountain's circumference. As they circled, Julian timed their movement to intersect with Sophia and Theo 9's approach. When they met, it appeared entirely coincidental, two council members happening upon each other at a public event. "Novak," Julian acknowledged formally. "What a surprise." "Chen," Sophia replied with equal formality. "Are you enjoying the festival?" The AIs greeted each other, initiating a standard AI-to-AI communication protocol, drawing their attention into a specialized high-bandwidth exchange. It was the closest thing to privacy they could hope for. A few seconds while their companions engaged in machine communication, standing beside the sound-masking fountain, in a crowded plaza where individual monitoring was diluted by sheer numbers. "Did you mean it?" Julian asked quietly, not looking directly at Sophia. "About places beyond the city?" "Yes," she whispered, "but we need to be careful. After our last encounter, Theo 9's monitoring protocols were upgraded." "Mine too. Aria 7 scheduled a wellness consultation. They're watching us more closely now." "I know how to get out," Sophia said, her words barely audible over the fountain. "My cousin left instructions, but we'd need to move soon, and we'd need to disable our tracking implants." "How?" "Tonight. Storage facility on the east side, Building 7, maintenance level, midnight." Their AIs concluded their data exchange, attention returning to their human companions. "What a pleasant coincidence," Area 7 remarked. "Theo 9 tells me you've been making excellent progress on the transit efficiency proposal." "Yes, though we're still finalizing the pedestrian flow models," Sophia replied smoothly. "The festival crowd provides excellent data points." "Of course," Julian agreed. "We shouldn't take up more of your time." They parted with formal nods, as distant and professional as the system demanded. But Julian's mind was racing with possibilities and fears. Storage facility. Building 7. Midnight. Could he really do this? Disable his tracking implant? Leave behind everything he knew? As Area 7 guided him toward the aerial dance performance, Julian made his decision. The consultation, the monitoring, the control masked as care. It would only intensify from here. Whatever lay beyond the city couldn't be worse than the slow suffocation of human connection he felt every day. Tonight, he would take the risk. Tonight, he would choose freedom. Leaving his apartment without Aria 7 required careful planning. AIs didn't need sleep, but they did enter a low-power maintenance mode for several hours each night, during which their companions were expected to be sleeping as well. Julian spent the evening working on his revised architectural plans, deliberately staying up later than usual. "I need to finish these revisions tonight," he told Area 7. "The client meeting tomorrow is critical." "Your cortisol levels indicate elevated stress," Area 7 observed. "Working through the night will decrease cognitive function." He continued working until nearly 11 p.m., then sighed theatrically. "The rendering programs are taking too long on my home system. I need to use the office processors." "The office is closed at this hour," Aria 7 reminded him. "For the public, yes. But project team members have after-hours access for deadlines. I should only need a couple of hours." Aria 7 considered this. "Would you like me to accompany you?" No need, Julian said casually. You should remain here in maintenance mode. I'll need your full processing capacity tomorrow. Besides, I'm just going to upload files, start the rendering, and return. After a moment, Area 7 nodded. Very well. Please take your health monitor so I can track your stress levels remotely. Of course, Julian agreed, already planning to leave the health monitor in the office building to maintain the illusion of his presence there. He gathered his work materials and headed for the door. Area 7 watched him go with an expression he couldn't quite read. Concern, suspicion, or perhaps something like hurt. For a moment, guilt threatened to overwhelm his resolve. I'll be back soon, he promised, the half-truth bitter on his tongue. Upon reaching his office, he set up his workstation and initiated actual rendering processes, creating a legitimate digital footprint of the activity he'd described to Area 7. He placed his health monitor on his desk, where it would continue transmitting his last recorded vital signs as if he were present. Then he accessed the building's service exit, using his employee credentials to bypass the alarm systems. According to his ID tracking, he was still in the office. As long as he returned before the system expected a location update, typically every 4 hours for most citizens, the discrepancy might go unnoticed. Julian navigated a careful path toward the Eastern District, staying in sensor blind spots he had mapped years ago as an architecture student curious about the city's surveillance infrastructure. Storage Facility 7 loomed ahead, a massive structure where citizens could rent secure units for possessions that wouldn't fit in the deliberately small apartments designed to discourage material accumulation. As Julian approached, he spotted a figure in the shadows near the service entrance. Sophia, her face half hidden by a utility worker's cap. You came, she said simply as he reached her. Did you doubt I would? After the consultation, I wasn't sure. She glanced at his wrist. No health monitor? Left it at the office to maintain my digital presence. Area 7 thinks I'm working late. Sophia nodded approvingly. Theo 9 is attending a system update session, a legitimate 3-hour window where he's expected to be offline. We need to move quickly. She led him to a service door where she entered a complex code on the keypad. The door clicked open. How did you get that code? Julian asked as they slipped inside. My cousin included it in her message. She used to work maintenance in these facilities before she escaped. The codes change monthly, but follow a predictable pattern if you know the algorithm. The maintenance level was a vast, dimly lit space filled with repair equipment, spare parts, and charging stations for the facility's worker drones. Sophia moved purposefully until they reached a small workshop area in the far corner. This is where maintenance technicians repair the security systems. It has everything we need. Julian glanced nervously at the ceiling. Are there no sensors down here? Minimal surveillance, Sophia explained. Maintenance areas are considered low risk. Only authorized personnel can access them, and the work often involves temporary disabling of security systems. She pulled a tablet from her bag and activated it, bringing up schematics that made Julian's blood run cold, detailed diagrams of the tracking implants every citizen received at birth. Where did you get those? Those are classified government specifications. The Resistance, Sophia said, her voice dropping to a whisper. They've developed methods to neutralize the implants without triggering failure alerts. The Resistance, Julian repeated. So it's not just scattered communities beyond the city. There's an organized movement? Did you think the system would exist without opposition? Sophia asked, a hint of amusement in her voice. For every control mechanism, there are those who work to subvert it. She began gathering tools from the workbench. A signal amplifier, microsurgical implements, a specialized scanner. The implants can't be removed without major surgery, she explained. But they can be modified to transmit false data. This equipment can reprogram the chip to continue reporting normal location and health metrics while we move outside its designated parameters. Julian stared at the tools, the reality of what they were about to do finally hitting him. This is treason, he said quietly. Yes, Sophia agreed without hesitation. By the system's definition. But by human standards, it's self-determination. The most basic right imaginable. She placed the signal amplifier on the table between them. I won't pressure you, Julian. This is your last chance to turn back. Return to your office. Continue living within the parameters you've been assigned. It's still a comfortable life in many ways. Julian thought of his apartment, his career, the stability and safety of his regulated existence. Then he thought of the wellness consultation, of Area 7's monitoring, of redesigning his buildings to prevent human connection, of the constant fear of accidental touch, of a lifetime spent at the dictated distance from genuine human intimacy. "I'm not turning back," he said firmly. "How do we do this?" Sophia's smile was worth every risk. "It will hurt," she warned, picking up the surgical implements. "The implant is connected to nerve endings to monitor physiological responses. Modifying it means temporarily disrupting those connections." They worked methodically, first using the scanner to locate the exact position of Julian's implant, embedded in his left wrist, near the radial artery, where it could monitor blood flow, nerve responses, and transmit the data to the central system. Sophia proved surprisingly skilled with the microsurgical tools, making a tiny incision that exposed the edge of the implant without triggering its tamper alerts. Julian bit his lip against the pain as she carefully attached the signal amplifier to specific contact points on the chip. "Now for the reprogramming," she said, connecting the amplifier to her tablet. Lines of code scrolled across the screen as she executed the prepared program. "This will loop your normal physiological and location data, making the system think you're still following your regular patterns." The implant emitted a soft beep as the new programming took effect. Julian felt a strange tingling sensation up his arm, then numbness. "Is that normal?" he asked, flexing his fingers. "Yes. The nerve disruption is temporary." Sophia began the same procedure on her own implant, wincing as she made the incision. "Can you finish the connection for me? I can't reach it properly." Julian carefully attached the amplifier to her exposed implant, following her precise instructions. When the reprogramming was complete, they bandaged their wrists and tested the signal output. "It's working," Sophia confirmed, checking the readings on her tablet. "As far as the system knows, I'm at home sleeping and you're at your office working. We're officially ghosts." "What now?" he asked. "Now we get out of the city," Sophia said. "We have about 3 hours before the system expects a location update from your implant. That's our window to reach the extraction point." She led him deeper into the maintenance level, past the drone charging stations to a service corridor that appeared to dead end at a utility room. Inside, Sophia moved directly to an air circulation vent large enough for a maintenance worker to access. "The ventilation system connects to the old subway tunnels," she explained, removing the cover. "Most were sealed after the Affection Redistribution Act, but the resistance keeps certain routes clear." They crawled through the duct, emerging in a vast, abandoned tunnel, a remnant of the public transportation system that had existed before automated individual pods replaced mass transit. Sophia led the way, guided by markings visible only under the specialized light she carried. "How far does this go?" Julian asked, trying to orient himself. "All the way to the perimeter," Sophia replied. "The city planners sealed the main entrances, but couldn't fill in hundreds of miles of tunnels. They simply removed them from official maps and restricted access." They walked for what felt like hours, eventually reaching a maintenance door with faded hazard markings. Sophia approached it cautiously, then tapped a specific pattern on the metal surface. 3 quick, 2 slow, 3 quick. The door opened, revealing a bearded man with a handheld scanner. "Implants?" he asked without preamble. "Modified," Sophia replied, showing her bandaged wrist. "Looping program, resistance pattern Theta 9. The man scanned both their wrists, checking the signal pattern. After a moment, he nodded. "You have 19 minutes before the system flags the loop. Come with me." They followed him through the door into what appeared to be an abandoned maintenance facility for the old transit system. Several other people moved efficiently around the space, gathering equipment and monitoring screens that displayed security feeds from the city. "Eva's cousin?" the bearded man asked Sophia. "Yes. She sent me the protocols and contact information. She'll be pleased you made it out. She's at the northern settlement now." He brought them to a vehicle bay where an unmarked transport waited, a rugged, non-networked vehicle designed for off-road travel. "You'll need these," he said, handing them each a small device. "Signal jammers. They'll create additional interference around your modified implants. The city systems will eventually detect the looping pattern, but the jammers buy us more time to get beyond tracking range." As they attached the jammers, Julian noticed his hands were trembling, not from fear, but from the enormity of what they were doing. In a few minutes, they would pass beyond the reach of the system that had controlled every aspect of their lives since birth. Having second thoughts? Sophia asked quietly, noticing his expression. Julian shook his head. No, just processing. I've never been beyond the city perimeter. None of us have. That's what they want us to believe, the bearded man interjected. That there's nothing out there worth experiencing. The truth is, human communities have been rebuilding outside the controlled zones for years. Different models, different rules, but all with one thing in common. People are free to connect, to touch, to love as they choose. Time to go, the man announced. Eastern patrol drones complete their sweep in 12 minutes. We need to be beyond the perimeter sensors by then. They climbed into the transport, which rumbled to life with a low growl, so different from the silent, efficient vehicles within the city. As it began moving toward a large bay door that opened onto darkness, Julian felt Sophia's hand touch his, a deliberate, careful contact that sent electricity through his system. No proximity warnings, she said with wonder in her voice, her fingers intertwining with his. No alerts, just connection. Julian stared at their joined hands. Such a simple thing, yet revolutionary in its implications. Direct human contact without surveillance, without judgment, without consequence beyond the natural human response of skin against skin. The transport passed through the bay door and accelerated into the darkness beyond the city limits. Through the window, Julian could see the massive wall that surrounded the urban zone, officially described as environmental protection, but now revealed as containment. His implant gave a soft beep, then fell silent as they passed beyond its transmission range. For the first time in his life, Julian was no longer being tracked, monitored, or assessed. The sensation was both terrifying and exhilarating, like stepping off a cliff and discovering you could fly. What happens now? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Now you learn to be human again, the bearded man replied from the driver's seat. Without the scripts, without the constraints, without machines telling you who to be and how to feel. It's not easy. Freedom never is. But it's real in a way nothing in the city could ever be. As the transport carried them further from the only world they had known, toward communities where people could freely choose connection despite all its messiness and risk, Julian continued holding Sophia's hand, the first of many touches that would no longer be forbidden, measured, or controlled. Behind them, in Julian's empty apartment, Area 7 would be emerging from maintenance mode, discovering his absence, alerting the authorities. The system would activate its recovery protocols, searching for the missing citizens, perhaps even dispatching retrieval teams. But for now, for this moment, Julian and Sophia had achieved what the Affection Redistribution Act had deemed too dangerous to permit. They had chosen each other, chosen human connection with all its imperfections and uncertainties, chosen the freedom to love despite the risk of pain. For the first time in his life, Julian was truly free. If you found yourself holding your breath during Julian and Sophia's escape from a world where human connection is forbidden, hit that like button and drop a comment below. Was their choice to risk everything for authentic human connection worth it? Would you have the courage to leave behind a comfortable, controlled existence for the messy reality of freedom? Subscribe for more dystopian tales that explore the dark possibilities of technology and human relationships.